Hi there guys, I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech, and in this video I'll be comparing the Samsung Galaxy A70 with the Vivo V15 Pro. Now before we get started, these are the pricing information. Vivo V15 Pro recently got a price cut and its base variant is priced at 27,000 rupees for 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. There is another variant at 30,000 rupees with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. Samsung Galaxy A70 is sold only in one variant at a price tag of 29,000 rupees with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. Now these two phones are sold both online and offline, and in the retail market you can bargain and negotiate the price to drop it further. Now for the actual comparison, I'll start with the design and build. Both phones come with a plastic back panel on the back in their own unique reflective patterns with multiple colors. Personally, I think design and build is a personal preference. Both phones are very well built, both phones fit pretty comfortably in a single hand, both phones weigh almost similar at 180 grams, and in hand, both feel almost the same. Samsung A70 has a much sleeker and more elegant look to it, while Vivo V15 Pro looks a bit bulkier and has a pretty unique design language of its own. To conclude, design and build are always personal preference. So you can pick the best one based on your preference, but for me, I'll pick Vivo V15 Pro for its unique looks. Now for the hardware section, both phones come with all the basic sensors. There's nothing missing on both the phones. Both phones lack LED notification light, but both come with always on display, so that can help you with notifications. Both phones come with in-display fingerprint scanner. Now they are not fast. They're definitely not fast as the OnePlus 7 Pro, but they are usable. On side-by-side comparison, fingerprint scanner on the V15 Pro is slightly faster. Both phones also feature face unlock, and surprisingly, Vivo was once again faster. Even though it does take a tiny bit of time to pop up the camera, it was faster than Samsung A70. Even in low lighting conditions, face unlock on Vivo worked better than Samsung A70. So if you're someone who likes to use the face unlock feature, then Vivo is definitely the best out there. Now going on next, both phones come with dual SIM support. Both phones support dual 4G along with dual LTE, and both phones have native video calling support. Both phones come with 128GB of storage, and if that's not sufficient for you, both phones offer a dedicated SD card slot. So overall, in terms of hardware department, I'd say with Vivo you get the pop-up camera, and with Samsung A70 you get additional NFC, and they do have their own uses. Now Samsung offers you a very unique feature called Samsung Pay, which literally isn't available on any other phone out there except for the Samsung flagships. Now using this Samsung Pay feature, you can make transactions using your phone without using any credit card or debit card. Like you have to just add your credit card and debit card details to your Samsung Pay account, and instead of swiping your card anywhere, you can just place your phone beside a swiping machine and the transaction gets done. It is the most highlighting feature on this phone. If you're someone who uses your credit cards or debit cards a lot to make a lot of transactions, then this feature can be a deal breaker for you. So overall in the hardware department, once again both are evenly matched, but Vivo performs slightly better because of the faster fingerprint scanner and faster face unlock feature. Now for the display, Vivo sports a 6.4-inch Super AMOLED display without any kind of notch with the new 19.5:9 aspect ratio. Bezels are super slim all around, and it gives you a much more immersive experience. Samsung A70 comes with a massive 6.7-inch Super AMOLED Infinity U display. That means it has a notch housing the front camera, and it doesn't look as cool as the V15 Pro. In terms of picture quality, both phones are evenly matched. In terms of color reproduction, contrast levels, both are the same. But because of a lack of notch and a completely immersive display on Vivo looks way better while watching videos or while playing games. So in the display department, Vivo V15 Pro is definitely the winner. Now for the camera department, on the rear both phones sports a triple camera setup. Vivo has a 48MP primary camera followed by 8MP ultra wide angle camera with a 5MP depth sensor, while Samsung has a 32MP primary camera with 8MP wide angle camera and a 5MP camera for taking portrait shots. On the front, Vivo has a 32MP camera with f2.0 aperture, while Samsung also has a 32MP camera with f2.0 aperture. Now these are some sample pictures. Images from Vivo have more contrast, look more pleasing, while images from Samsung look close to reality. Dynamic range is good on both phones, and both phones handle exposure differently. So at most times you get different results on both phones. Sometimes Vivo does it better, and sometimes Samsung does it better. Same thing applies even for the wide angle cameras. Now for portrait shots, these are the sample pictures. Personally, I think even for portrait shots, Vivo does better. Even though edge detection is kinda bad, background blur effect looks more natural. On Samsung A70, background blur effect looks a bit artificial. Now for the front camera, selfies taken from Vivo have better color balance, better exposure control, and they look slightly better. Selfies from A70 also look pretty good, In fact, they are much wider, but colors are slightly to the cooler side. For selfies, I prefer Vivo. The same thing goes for even portrait selfies. These are some sample pictures. Now for video recording, both phones offer stabilization at 1080p resolution using the primary camera. Here's the sample footage. I don't know why, but the footage from A70 was pretty bad. So Vivo is the winner once again. This is the wide angle footage. Samsung has stabilization while Vivo doesn't. Over here, Samsung does a better job. For front camera video, here's the sample footage. So guys, this is the sample footage recorded between the Samsung Galaxy A70 and the Vivo V15 Pro. On the left side I have the A70 and on the right side I have the V15 Pro. I am currently recording this video at 1080p resolution and the audio is from the phone itself. So check out the noise cancellation and stabilization offered by both phones and let me know which one sounds better and which one looks better. With that said, I'll just walk around. Once again, Vivo does a better job. So guys, in the camera department, there isn't a huge difference between both the phones, but personally I like the results from Vivo more than Samsung. Now let's talk about performance. Both phones sport the same Snapdragon 675 processor with Adreno 612 GPU. Both phones even come with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage on the base variants. These are the Antutu and Geekbench scores. Now when it comes to performance, both phones are super smooth and super responsive, there is no lag whatsoever. Memory management is also equally good on both phones, thanks to that 6GB of RAM. So in the performance department, it's a tie. Now for the software department, both phones run a custom skinned version of Android. Vivo calls it FunTouch OS and it is pretty similar to iOS. Recently Vivo got a major update which brought in new changes like a new control center, which looks a lot like the recent iOS devices, and you can also use split screen mode for almost all the applications. These two are definitely major changes on V15 Pro. On Samsung, you get the Samsung's One UI, which was developed by Samsung in collaboration with Google to make your phone much more usable single-handedly. So most of the things are pretty big and easily accessible using a single hand. In terms of updates, Vivo still has the March security patch, while the Samsung A70 has the May security patch. In terms of updates, both are the same, like you get updates on both phones, but they are much slower than other phones. Especially Samsung might get regular updates and you might see some new UI changes. But with Vivo, even if you get security patches, you won't see any major improvements in UI for a pretty long time. In terms of UI, both phones are completely different and offer you a different set of features. So in the software department, pick the winner based on your preference. As for me, I'll pick Samsung's One UI as the winner. Now for the audio department, both phones have a 3.5mm audio jack and also come with a mono speaker at the bottom. In terms of speaker loudness, both are pretty good. There's nothing extraordinary about both the phones. So in the audio department, I'll call it as a tie. Now for the battery section, Vivo comes with a 3700 mAh battery supports fast charging and comes with something called dual engine fast charging with a maximum output of 18 watts. Samsung A70 has a larger 4500 mAh battery and comes with a 25 watt super fast charger. In terms of charging speeds, obviously Samsung is faster, but when it comes to battery life, both are good. Like on Vivo, you can definitely get a day of battery life without any issues. On Samsung, it can definitely last you more than a day. If you are a heavy user who likes to play a lot of games, then in the battery department you can pick Samsung as a winner, but if you're a casual user, battery department is a tie. So guys, to conclude, both phones are pretty evenly matched. They are almost the same, but at the same time, they give you two completely different experiences. First, with the Vivo V15 Pro, the major change would be the pop-up selfie camera and that immersive display. So if you want a phone with cutting-edge technology and immersive display, then Vivo V15 Pro is definitely the best choice. With that said, if you're a Samsung fan or want a massive display with a massive battery, then you can consider Samsung as well. Now, if I have to choose a phone between Vivo V15 Pro and the Samsung A70, then I'll pick the V15 Pro, mainly for the unique looks, pop-up camera, and that awesome looking display. So guys, out of these two phones, which one will you pick and why? Do let us know by commenting below this video, and if you're planning to buy any of these phones, use the link in the description. It always helps the channel, and if you want us to make any specific video, tweet out to us with hashtag AskGreedyTech on Twitter and we will try to make it as soon as possible. I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech signing off. Have a nice day.